Welcome to the Inside Carolina Postgame podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. That is Sherrell McMillan. It is late here on the East Coast, but we are going to talk briefly about North Carolina's 16-point win, 86-70 over the Louisville Cardinals. Sherrell, I want to get your opening thoughts, but I'm going to give mine just to start with. Watching that first half, and they kept showing the Louisville bench, I legitimately thought in my head, I wonder if Danny Manning, Nolan Smith, and those guys suited up, would they be better than this team Louisville had on the court? And then the second half happened, and they played much better. Your overall thoughts on what you saw from North Carolina?
Yeah, it was pretty, I would call it workmanlike for the vast majority of the second half. And it's actually not a bad thing. They got a pretty sizable lead, and you never want to coast, but you also want to be able to feel good about having a lead. And I think they did that, pretty much in the first half. They kept it up to, or I think it was around 17 at one point in the first half. And then the second half, there was some slippage, especially defensively. That was some late November, mid-November defense that we saw from them in the second half. But I think the good thing about this team that we've seen so far is that they do pretty much always respond, regardless of the circumstance. You're reminded of Syracuse. Syracuse, a game that Carolina won by, was it 37, 36? In the second half, Syracuse had a similar run where they cut it down to 15. And before you knew it, Carolina had it back up to about 23. And it wasn't quite as quick tonight, but there was a point where it got down to 5, and within a couple minutes, it was back to 12 or 13. I never felt like UNC was in jeopardy of losing the game. I think it was just, I think we, folks who follow UNC and fans who watch the team, just kind of wanted another blowout. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. I think Hubert Davis kind of got the best of both worlds with this. He got a comfortable 16-point win, but as you know, it's easier to teach after a win than it is a loss. And I think he can go to them and say, all right, you scored 86 points, but look how much you gave up in the second half. They made, I think it was 9 of their 10 first shots, or 9 of their first 10 shots in the second half. So he's got some stuff that he can go back and he can tell them, look, you might be 6-0 in conference, but you're by no means perfect. So kind of, I think for Hubert Davis, a win-win, and for the team in general, they were never really in jeopardy of losing the game.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, especially the point about, you know, there's some lessons to be learned here. And while I think you can lose and get that lesson smacked in your face a little bit, I think the second half certainly showed this team that maybe they're not as good as they think they are if they don't play like they have been. And we're talking with Sherrell McMillan post game, Carolina 86-70, of course. Johnny T-shirt and congruityhr.com/slash Tar Heels for that free assessment with them on the small business. Sherrell, let's talk a little bit about early because I thought Carolina really looked great. And one thing, even though I didn't see it, I had to see the replay given that we were still watching Miami and Florida State. Bacot came out of the gate with a lot of energy, looked very quick, looked fast in the pink shoes. I know somebody on the message board expressed disdain for the shoe color or whatever, but Bacot was moving around in those pink ones today. What'd you think about his play? He just looked more inspired, more aggressive, at least early.
I think that's fair. Definitely trying to carve out position. I think he knows Huntley Hatfield pretty well. They have a relationship dating back to AAU, so those guys are familiar and they played against each other. So I'm sure that's a part of it. But also, running the court against a team who doesn't have the size that North Carolina does. If you sprint down the court and get position, more than likely you're going to get the ball. So I think that's probably part of it too. In general, I would say Armando's been fine. I know there's been kind of a back and forth amongst the fan base about exactly his play this year and whether or not he's regressed and what has he improved on. But I mean, the dude's fairly consistent outside of a game here or there. I mean, he had 16 points against Pittsburgh. He had 14 against Clemson. Struggled against NC State because he didn't play much. But then he had 16 against Syracuse and he had 19 tonight. And he's always around that 8 to 12 rebound mark. So I mean, there's not much to really say about someone who's going to give you pretty much 15 and 9.5 or 15 and 10 pretty much every single night. You want him to be a little bit better around the rim, and I think that's something he struggled with at times throughout his career. There was maybe 3 bunnies in the second half that I think he would really want back. But aside from that, I think you're seeing kind of what he needs to be for this team to be successful. They don't need uh, I'll say this. They don't need him to be the 25 and 20 guy that he was at times, during that run, during his junior year. I think what he's doing now is exactly what this team needs because they have other pieces that can help do some of the things that he's been used to doing. The rebounding aspect of it. Jalen Withers, I think we'll talk about him, but I think he had 10 rebounds. Harrison Ingram had another 4 or 5. RJ Davis has always been a good guard rebounder. So, it's a situation where he doesn't have to do it all anymore, and I think that's better for him.
Agree with that too as well. Sherrell McMillan talking about Armando Bacot there. I do like to see Bacot run the floor. I do like to see him active. I love the free throw shooting. I mean, that is huge for this team.
Yeah, I
Talk.
mean, that's like a huge underrated story this season. And maybe it's not underrated amongst the folks who follow UNC, but I think nationally, when you have someone like him who has struggled at the free throw line for a lot of his career, and now you see his percentage jump. I don't know the exact number right now, but I think it's jumped, almost 20 points, and that we'll find somebody smarter to do the math, but you're adding 4, 5, 6 points a game from the free throw line that just weren't there in previous years. So that's big for North Carolina. It's going to be big for North Carolina in some of these intense games to come. And if you start looking down the road, if he can do that, in the NCAA tournament in pressurized situations, that's obviously a big bonus for you when you have Cormac Ryan who's shooting 90+%. And you have RJ Davis also who's shooting 90+%. So just something to think about moving forward. But I think that's a huge development for this team.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's where I was going. I mean, he's averaged pretty much 16 and 10 for his career. If he had shot 85% or whatever he's shooting this year, 80%, that'd probably be 18 or 19 every game. So that's huge for this team, especially as many times as teams are going to foul him and put him on the line down there. So tonight, 5 for 6, 7 for 11 from the field, 19 and 7. You mentioned Cormac Ryan, and this is another guy, and it's one of those reasons why Bacot does not have to do as much. If Cormac shoots it like he did early in the first half, 4 for 7 on the night, I think he missed his last 3. Uh, but just speak to what you saw from him. He seems to, when he doesn't just flat out rush it, and he can get his feet underneath him, he's pretty deadly from 3 point range, and I think Carolina's going to need that as this season progresses.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I think everyone's been waiting for is that next breakout game for him. And I guess because they all happened in the first half, it's a little bit like we forgot about it because Carolina let the lead get down to 5. But tremendous first half. There were a couple times even in the second half where I thought he was open, and I'm like, man, you shoot it. You're kind of in the groove. I think there was one specifically in the second half, kind of on the right baseline. It ended up being a shot clock violation. It was the possession where Cadeau had the shot blocked and it went out of bounds and it turned into a shot clock violation. But in general, man, that's a huge thing for UNC because as we've seen, it's been kind of hard for them to get all 4 of their kind of big 4 scorers, Harrison Ingram, RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, and Ryan kind of scoring together in the same game. It's usually 2 or 3 of those, and then somebody else. Like tonight, that somebody else was Withers, even though Ingram did end up with 10. So, seeing him kind of make up for Harrison Ingram's, scoring drought, I guess you would call it. He's only been in double figures, I think, 3 times or 2 times in the last 5 games. So as Ingram is fading a little bit offensively, and I'm sure he'll get back, you see Ryan starting to get a little bit better offensively. So it's good that they have those interchangeable parts, like you said. And then again, it opens up driving lanes for Davis and Cadeau, and it gives Bacot, kind of space to operate. So definitely something that can take this UNC team, I think, to the next level is Ryan making shots. He doesn't have to go 4 for 7, but just make a couple every night, and I think that really helps.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen Withers too as well. We're talking with Sherrell McMillan. Shout out to the 400 people that are in here. It is 11:30 on the East Coast. Been a long day, so shout out to the folks that have joined Inside Carolina. But Sherrell, Jalen Withers is a guy. He needs to play against Louisville every night. He looked aggressive. He made some tough moves, 5 for 6 on the field, 5 for 7 from the line, 15 and 10, like you mentioned. Uh, what can he really bring to this team consistently? Is it that athleticism? Is it a combination of everything? Is it defense? What have you seen from him on that end? I just think he's a guy that, up until tonight, there's been so much more that I wanted to see from him, that others that have talked on this show wanted to see from him. Tonight, he really showed those flashes.
I think what he brings and can continue to bring is utility. Uh, in that, I mean, energy, rebounding, kind of the things that don't necessarily involve scoring. His scoring will be a byproduct of doing those things well. So if he offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds and gets out in the passing lanes for steals or has good hands on a couple of those catches and finishes well, that's, I think, how he impacts the team. It was a good game for him. 15 points, 10 rebounds, a double double. I think he's the third or he's the fourth Carolina player to have a double double of some kind this year. I think Cadeau had assists. I don't know if he had points. Anyway, doing live radio, but I know for sure that Ingram and Withers and now Bacot, Ingram, and now Withers have all had points and rebounds, double doubles. So that shows you what he's capable of. There was a stretch there though. I thought his usage rates might have been a little high. There's a little bit of give it to Jalen and let him cook, and I don't know if that's the most successful way for UNC to operate offensively, but it worked tonight. So kudos to him because at the beginning of the season, I don't think he knew exactly what his role was going to be. I think he came in and we had heard that he was going to start initially, then he got hurt, and that set things back a little bit. And so I think he thought maybe his role would be different. And again, give him kudos, give Hubert Davis kudos. They've kind of reined it in to what exactly they want him to do, and I think you see it now. He seems comfortable. There's not, even though there was tonight, there's not a ton of get the ball and go ISO or anything like that. It's a lot of cutting and moving and energy, and he can do that all day. And his athleticism also allows him to finish really well around the rim, and he could be UNC's best finisher around the rim, honestly. So that will come in handy as the season goes on too.
Yeah, I think some of it tonight was it's Louisville and it's his former team. Let's let him get his, and he was playing against guys he had some familiarity with. I agree about the athleticism around the rim. I still can't figure out if he dunked that when he went up and under, or the other guy pushed it in. But anyway, it's not something we see beyond him and maybe Seth Trimble, is that athleticism at the rim, Sherrell.
Yeah, and how many times have me and you talked about it? We talked about it on Coast to Coast. Just over the last few years, it feels like Carolina has struggled at times at finishing around the rim. Um, Part of it is size, maybe part of it is lack of athleticism, maybe part of it is not exactly running a fundamental fast break. But when you have someone like Cadeau and you have someone like Withers who can get out in the passing lane and then get out on the fast break, it makes it a lot easier to finish. So good for him. I'm glad he had a good game. I'm sure it will do wonders for his confidence moving forward, but he needs to make sure that he kind of stays within his role. So that was my only worry. I know that's weird to think about after such a great performance, but you want to make sure that he still understands what this team needs him to do for it to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing about this team is guys learning their roles, aka staying in their lane and doing what they're supposed to do. And I think that's been huge for the team. I want to let you get out of here. I told you I'd have you for 15 minutes. Shout out to Sherrell for stepping in late here in late night. I want to ask you one more question though. Elliot Cadeau, were you surprised at the hops and the dunk he had? A lot of people appeared to be shocked that he could do that. You followed this guy for a long time in the high school ranks. Just sort of speak to what folks can expect as his game continues to expand.
No, I'm not surprised because you've seen that on the AAU circuit a few times. It surprises a lot of people the first time you see it, but after that, it's coming. And he seems to be just kind of lonely defensive sleeper. Like, oh, he's going to drop this off, left hand to Bacot for the dunk. And then you just see that burst that kind of comes out of nowhere. And I remember the first time we really started looking into him and found out that UNC was interested. That's what jumped up. It was just like, you just didn't see it coming. You see this kind of, I won't say smaller because he's 6 foot, but you see the 6-foot kid, like he's going towards the rim. Oh, he's going to lay it up. He's going to pass it, and just there's an explosion that you're not anticipating, and he just throws it down. So that's there. I think he doesn't show it a lot, but it's definitely there. And overall, I think it's just a matter of continuing to get comfortable for him. There were a couple of assists that I wish he was able to be credited with. The R.J. Davis three that didn't count was a beautiful play by him. There was another one where a player got fouled right before the basket went in. So his assist numbers, I think he is only credited with 3, but it felt more like 5 or 6. And then he had a couple of hockey assists as well. And Sean said it, Sean Moran, one of Inside Carolina's basketball analysts. It really is infectious when you have someone like Cadeau who is, in his own way, sacrificing, and passing to teammates and moving the ball around and making sure it doesn't stick. That makes you want to do it too. And there's a couple times, even when Carolina got maybe a little pass heavy, excuse me, where possessions went on where guys had clean looks, but they were trying to get to the better look, and you like that. You like to see that moving forward. So I think that's what he brings to the team, and then he does have the ability. R.J. Davis obviously is the top option in this situation, but he does have the ability as the shot clock winds down to go to find a way to get to the rim and either lay it up, get fouled, or find someone because he's very difficult to stay in front of. So as he continues to grow, I think it'll help North Carolina a lot. He's got to get better defensively. I think he knows that. There was a stretch there where I think Sky Clark kind of realized like this. I don't know if this kid can guard me, and he went at him. So that's something that he'll continue to improve upon. But he's growing, and I think he's starting to see it.
Yeah, and it's huge for the team. It gives RJ, it frees RJ up. We didn't even talk about RJ
I,
tonight.
I was I was gonna say we've got to give him something. I mean,
I was
he's
going to
the
let you close with it. I
yeah
mean,
he's
he continues to be a bucket. He continues to be the man for this team. I've said Harrison Ingram's the best player on this team. Uh, I might come off of that a little bit as RJ keeps it up.
yeah. I mean, right now he's the front runner for ACC Player of the Year. I think it's probably gonna end up being a 2-man race. I won't mention the other name because it's gonna get everybody riled up, but it's probably a 2-man race. And then I think honestly, I don't see an argument for him not being a first team All American at this point. Clearly, there's 14 more regular season games to go, probably at least 1 or 2 ACC tournament games, and then who knows in the NCAA tournament. But I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who's having a season like RJ Davis. And like tonight, it's not just the points. He had 21, which is right at his average. It's the efficiency. 50% from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, 5 of 5 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 turnover. And that's not a stat line that is rare for him. 21 5 and 4 or 21 8 and 3 with a turnover here or there is kind of what he does. So it's getting to the point kind of like Bacot where like when RJ Davis takes a 3, you're like, well, that's going in. You're shocked when it doesn't go in. He's shooting a career high. Everything is up. So, I there's not enough to say about his play. It's just to the point now where you expect 20 points a game and you expect a bunch of assists and a bunch of big shots. So, again, kudos to him because he's gotten better every single year.
He has, and if you don't believe it, go look at his stats. Every single year they get better and better, and RJ is, to your point, I mean, he had 21 tonight, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's just what he does, and he hits big shot after big shot. And the free throws, we mentioned that earlier. The free throws are huge. I mean, when you've got a ball handler that will hit free throws down the stretch of ball games, is back in the day, he had old style Carolina basketball. The game was over. If Carolina had the lead and you had the foul, it was over. And RJ's working that, as are some others. It's been a fun one, Sherrell. We went longer than 15, so I owe you 5 minutes down the way. Almost 500 people in the chat, which is nuts. But yeah, any parting wisdom for our crowd in here? There's a lot of them, and they listen to you religiously. So give us some parting wisdom as Carolina goes. I guess Syracuse, is it Syracuse this weekend or Boston College? Boston College, yeah, at
Yeah,
Boston College, which is never a fun place to play.
yeah. That's a Harrison Ingram game for me. That's what was it? What did Dabo say? Bring your own guts.
Yeah,
Like this is a bring your own energy game because it's going to be like Joey said on Coast to Coast. It's going to be probably half empty. There's going to be some Carolina fans there, but in general, it's just kind of a weird place to play. It's kind of a sleepy environment. So Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan too. I think they're the two guys who got to make sure that the team is up to it. Obviously, Hubert Davis is in charge of that, but on the court, I think Ryan and Ingram will be really important on Saturday to keep the team's energy up. But Boston College, they're not a bad team. They're not great by any stretch. I don't even know if I would call them good, but I don't think they're bad either. And Quentin Post is an all ACC caliber, player, I think. So it'll be a good challenge for UNC. And then the part that's not, I want to say frustrating, but difficult for them is you fly to Boston probably on Friday morning. You get there, stay the night, have a game Saturday in Boston, fly back, get back to UNC, probably late Saturday, have a day of rest, and then you have Wake Forest coming in Monday at 7. So it's a quick turnaround, lots of travel. So it's the first, um, Saturday, Monday in ACC play. So curious to see how they respond, to basically 3 games in 5.5 days.
It's going to be interesting to watch. I think the second half of this game will have Carolina on point against Boston College, and then when Wake come in Monday night, which the Coast to Coast podcast will be the post game for that. So stay tuned for that as well. I think it'll be a tell. Let's see how good is this Carolina team in just grinding out wins in the ACC, because we know that the ACC is not good on paper, and so you can't afford to lose these games. And Carolina's shown an ability to grind them out, which is interesting and good for me to watch this bunch. There's no way they can't win ball games, and Carolina's shown that again. 86-70 over Louisville.
Well,
Sherrell
let me
McMillan is the
let,
man.
let me let me add one more thing. And I'm sorry, but
See here for the record, folks. I texted Sherrell with like 5 minutes left in the game and said, "I need you on post game. Can you join me?" And he did, and now he wants to keep rolling. Ultimate team player. Go ahead, Sherrell.
no, I was just going to say, in that, I think one of the things that's different about this team is that um, I don't. They might lose. They might not win a game, but I don't think they're going to lose games. And what I mean is, I don't think they're going to go up there and have 22 turnovers and shoot, 5 of 26 from 3 and all that. They're going to fight. They're going to compete. They're going to be in it. So when you can have a basketball game where you just don't win. That happens. But I think too often over the last 4 or 5 years for UNC, they've lost games. They've not won them, if that makes any sense. So that is one thing about this team that I think is different. I think tonight was an example. I think Saturday against Syracuse was an example. I think the 3 road games were examples. They found ways to win, and they weren't going to lose the game. They were going to make the opponent beat them. And going up to BC, that's kind of half the battle. Like, just don't lose it yourself. And so I think they have a firm grasp of that. I think that's one thing that Carolina fans don't have to worry about.
Indeed, you can win a lot of games if you just don't beat yourself. And to Sherrell's point, Carolina is doing just that. Next up, Boston College on Saturday. We'll see if we can't get a post game for that, but stay tuned to Inside Carolina and all the guys for all their hard work covering this game and much more. Check out Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. Those are your duties. Hit the like button. Check out Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity, and we'll keep kicking you to great content here. Sherrell, thanks as always, my man.